I have with me, luckily, a drawing, a print made from an original drawing that I did for building the sets for Mr. Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, which, as you know, is the new name for Roald Dahl's book, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Now, I think this drawing will be interesting to most of the children there in the 5th grade of the Lucy D. School in Madison. Most of those who have read Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, because this is one of the highlights of the book. This is the inventing room. Now, I seem to hear a lot of voices ohing and ahhing because some of them remember the inventing room, and I hope that they're not disappointed with this drawing. But you see, Kathy and students, boys and girls, someone has to decide when they make a film what the inventing room really looks like. You just cannot go out and find an inventing room like in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, because this was all a story. This is a fairy story made to entertain people, and it's all very special. So all these special things that the writer talked about have to be brought to life, have to be built, have to be painted, have to be colored. Someone has to decide how they work, what makes them run, how they operate, and how the chocolate is really made. So this drawing is the first attempt to show and to decide what the different parts of the inventing room look like. Now, from this drawing, each individual part, each machine, is made specially, and when you see the film, you will see a long shot that is much the same, only in full color and with live people, much the same as this drawing. And then you will come into close-ups of each individual part. Now, don't be confused, children, because you see Mr. Wonka several places in this drawing. This is merely to show you when he comes through the main door in the back, in the center, in the background. Here you see him coming through the door, and on his right you see an Oompa Loompa, and who is working the master control. Then he looks at the butterscotch and butter gin tub. You see that kind of in the center on the left. And then in the foreground, he is by where they're mixing the whipped cream. Now, another thing that you'll see is that the Oompa Loompas are not any longer little pygmies from Africa, but they are little midgets. Now, this is brought about because it was going to be very difficult for the film to bring real little pygmies from Africa. So, as we made the film in Europe, we got a troupe of live little midgets who entertained people at carnivals and circuses in England, and they became the Oompa Loompas in our picture. Now, first let's talk about probably the most interesting machine that you'll find in the inventing room, and that is the chewing gum machine. Now, the chewing gum machine is where Violet Beauregard, you remember Violet, who chewed gum constantly, was eating this piece of chewing gum that was really a 4 or 5 course dinner that started off with tomato soup and then roast beef, and then went into some kind of salad and ended up with a dessert. Now, Mr. Wonka had not perfected this machine yet, and Violet, being the very eager girl that she was and not listening, took the piece of chewing gum right out of Mr. Wonka's hand and chewed it, and she grew fat and turned into a great big giant purple blueberry. And this machine you'll see in the right lower corner, just above the big cauldron of bubbling candy. Now, just in the center, we've already spoken about it, is the place where they whip the cream. Now you see we've taken an ordinary bicycle, and the Oompa Loompa sits on the bicycle and pedals, but instead of a rear wheel, we have a thing just like a mixmaster or an egg beater in your home. Only it's a big one, and this is a great big tub of cream, and the Oompa Loompa gets his exercise there, and he makes the whipped cream. Now, in the book you won't find this other invention, but that's just to the left of the bicycle, and at the very bottom of the sketch, you see something that looks like 5 cannons pointed toward the sky. Now, this makes smoke rings. Maybe some of you children have seen your daddy smoke a cigar or a cigarette and make smoke rings. Well, this is a giant smoke ring machine, and this is the way the Oompa Loompas test the purity of the chocolate. And if the smoke ring is perfect as it goes up in the air, why, the chocolate is just right. If it is not so good, it is not so bad. Just above that, with Mr. Wonka tending it, is the butterscotch and butter gin. Now, you'll see this in the picture. And then, in the background, you'll see all the funny machinery that's all been made where he's testing out new recipes for making new kinds of candy. Now, if you look real hard at this picture and try to hold it in your memory, if the children do, when you see the film, you will be able to notice and see how all of these things came about. Somebody first had to decide what the machine looked like and decide how big it was going to be, where it was going to be placed, what the inventing room was going to look like. And that's what this first sketch is all about. Now, after the writer, the author of the book, and the director, and the producer of the film have agreed that this is the proper way to do this, they give me the go-ahead to go ahead and have this built. Then I must go out to different shops, the metal shop, the wood shop, and the paint shop, and see that each one of these machines is constructed the way I want it to look and to work the way it is in this drawing. So that when you see the gum machine and the everlasting gobstopper machine and all of these machines, it might be interesting for you to realize that someone first had to decide how it was going to work, make a design and a drawing showing carpenters and craftsmen how to build it, and then explain to the photographer how it should be lit and photographed. And this may make it all films, not just Mr. Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, but all films more interesting to you. When you see that these things, these backgrounds, don't just happen, they are contrived.